last decade, comic book movies have dominated the box office, with at least 3 of these movies coming out every year. However, this obviously wasn't always the case. Today's movie, Unbreakable, was released in the year 2000, at a time when comic book movies were certainly in a trough, with the 90s full of awful comic book inspired movies, and only a few exceptions. Unbreakable came out just before 2 of the most iconic and popular comic book movies in X-Men and Spider-Man, both paving the way to the superhero resurgence. Due to this, Unbreakable has unfortunately gone under the radar to both comic book movie fans and the general public, and even in specific comic book movie lists is not listed as high as I believe it merits. Our movie begins with our protagonist, David Dunn, on a train. After a few minutes of conversation with a woman who rejects his advances,
I think I'm gonna find another seat.
I didn't mean that.
giving us a very good perception of his relationship with his wife, the train crashes, killing everyone on board, except Mr. Dunn, who miraculously is completely unharmed. Thus, our plot is kicked into gear. You will have noticed that in this first scene we never get a full shot of David, the frame skewed by 2 seats. More on this later. We are quickly introduced to Elijah Price, played by Samuel L. Jackson, who believes David is a modern-day superhero.
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Elijah suffers from a rare disease, causing Elijah's bones to break easily, leading to some psychologically nervy scenes. Without spoiling too much, the majority of the movie focuses on these 2 characters and their arcs. David, of course, dismisses Elijah's theory as nonsense. Yet as we continue, his theory gains more and more momentum. David struggles not only with this, but with family life, he and his wife drifting apart, and David trying to connect with his son. The movie, for the most part, is a drama over any other genre. The plot itself is relatively simple, it is not of breakneck pace, and there aren't too many characters. Yet despite this, the main questions and answers of this film are fairly complex, the first being of David's arc, and his recognition of perhaps being special. This is done really well throughout the film, and is actually quite believable. Elijah's motivation to try and convince David is also done well. The best scenes in the film are mostly the ones shared by these 2 characters. The movie's plot relies upon the characters' emotions and decisions. There is nothing that forces or decides their actions, unlike most superhero movies. Secondly is the question of doing what is right. Why should David be a superhero? And why should he help people? David struggles with this question at first, and this is why I would not call this an origin movie, as David never receives any powers suddenly, or is forced into fighting some maniacal bad guy. Personally, I love the story of Unbreakable. It reveals itself to be a very personal one, and this is its biggest appeal to me, and perhaps one of the reasons it faltered at the box office.
Why are you looking at me like that? There are 2 reasons why I'm looking at you like this. 1, because it seems you are the only survivor of this train wreck. And 2, you don't have a scratch on you.
The biggest difference between Unbreakable and most other comic book movies is the direction and cinematography. The plot shares similar arcs and twists with traditional origin stories like Spider-Man and Superman, yet it is how it is shown and in what style which makes this movie unique. As previously mentioned, in one of the first scenes, the frame is not revealed as a whole. This is done in the movie a few times, shot as though you are looking through or in between something. Shyamalan attempting to reproduce the effect of comic book panels. Another thing of note is the film's visual look is of a dark blue colour throughout, making the movie seem slightly eerie and down to earth, and works well near the movie's conclusion. On screen there are no loud explosions and not many action scenes, most of the drama coming from the dialogue. The direction and writing lead to many captivating scenes. In other movies, these scenes could come off as cheesy and perhaps downright comedic, but luckily Shyamalan does it just right, capturing the tone brilliantly. The movie, as said before, is quite slow moving, giving you time to take in what is happening and come to your own conclusions why events are happening. It also gives you more time to grasp onto the characters' feelings and what their next action means to them. To me this is perfect, as if rushed, the movie's characters would not feel fully 3D at all. Despite the movie using dialogue as its main focus of drama, there are also many scenes and shots light of it, many using movements, gestures and poses to represent and exonerate the character's thoughts. In the first scene we learn many details about David very quickly. A detail picked up upon by critics and viewers is the use of colour, used oftentimes in movies to represent things from characters' emotions to a forthcoming twist. In the movie, Elijah is often represented by the colour purple, although he has nothing to do with Oprah Winfrey, and David represented by the colour green. These are unusual colours, and there doesn't appear to be a point to this inclusion. However, I can at least appreciate the attention to detail.
131 people died so you could finally understand the destiny for which you were born. Are you ready for the truth?
David Dunn is a complex character. Bruce Willis brilliantly portrays this character, turning in one of his best performances ever, and probably one of the only roles he's cared about in the 21st century. His performance is almost the exact opposite to his portrayal of John McClane in Die Hard. He's subdued and quiet, oftentimes holding in his emotions. The way he acts is all supported and explained by past incidents and the decay of his relationships. Samuel L. Jackson is also great, though he's not in as many scenes as David. His obsessive behaviour could become too unnerving if done poorly. However, throughout the movie we have sympathy for Elijah. His stubbornness regarding his beliefs is supported by his past, also providing a nice parlay between the two characters and their pasts. David's son, played by Treat Spencer Clark, is also really good in both dramatic scenes and in providing some comedy in the film. So the cast maintain a good level of acting, though the two main characters stand out above all else.
Knight definitely has a vision and a plan, but I think he is really good at getting the best out of everybody who works with him.
What? No!
The themes of this movie and how well they resonate with me are honestly the most important part of the movie. They make me and many other Unbreakable lovers become emotionally involved with the movie, not only during, but after as well. To me, this movie is inspiring, specifically towards its conclusion. In my opinion, the movie is all about fate, inferring that we were all made to do something. We are all somehow special. David in the movie is sad, never really knowing what he was meant to do in life. But the arcs of both main characters are so brilliant and poignant, enforcing the point that you can find the thing you were meant to do, and you can be happy, no matter what happened in your past. And to me, that is a powerful message, one that is rarely matched in many movies, never mind in the superhero genre. A large part of the theme of the movie is influenced by James Newton Howard's score. The second act of the film is the most eerie and slightly ambiguous, leading to the conclusion of the movie and the characters' arcs. The score itself is great, subtle at times, but thundering when it reaches its peak. It's used brilliantly in the film, and it's very inspiring, and you'll always know it when you hear it. Unbreakable is not based on any particular comic book or series, yet it is heavily influenced and arguably more loving and faithful to them. In the film, mostly through Elijah, comic books are depicted as a type of art, heralded as intelligent and important, providing motivation to a young Elijah and influencing him throughout his life. It is very clear that Shyamalan loves comic books, and that is the main reason for why he made the movie. In fact, the whole movie, in many ways, follows basic visual and story themes with comic books. These are mentioned fairly vaguely through some of the dialogue.
Once again, please.
My son Jeb, it's a gift for him.
How old is Jeb?
He's 4.
No. No, 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 no. You need to go. Now.
What'd I say?
Do you see any Teletubbies in here? Do you see a slender plastic tag clipped to my shirt with my name printed on it? Did you see a little Asian child with a blank expression sitting outside in a mechanical helicopter that shakes when you put quarters in it? No? Well, that's what you see at a toy store. And you must think you're in a toy store because you're here shopping for an infant named Jeb. Now, one of us has made a gross error and wasted the other person's valuable time. This is an art gallery, my friend. And this is a piece of art.
They say this one has a surprise ending.
The twist at the end of the film is what deters people, or makes them love the film even more. It's so simple. I mean, who else could be the villain except Elijah? Yet, it arcs back to Shyamalan's love of comic books. Even more so when you notice how some shots are filmed. In the first scene, as Elijah is born, we are seeing reflections of a mirror. Now a while later, David looks in a mirror in his locker. Then, in a flashback of Elijah, he is shown via a reflection off a TV. Finally, in the finale, Elijah says,
In a comic, you know how you can tell who the arch villain's going to be? He's the exact opposite of the hero.
As we see earlier, Elijah is a mirror's image, or a reflection, of David. I can see from a certain perspective that this twist kinda sucks. Some could call it anticlimactic, perhaps expecting something more, and especially how this movie essentially ends with a 90s era freeze frame. Yet me personally, I think this is the perfect ending. Elijah does not want to kill or harm David. He is almost like his mentor. He wants David to find his true fate, so that he himself can get to his. And my God, the monologue. Every time I watch it, I swear it gives me goosebumps. It brings out so many emotions. The surprise and horror as Elijah reveals what he has done.
To not know your place in this world. To not know why you're here. It's just an awful feeling. What have you done?
Then the sympathy and sadness as he reveals his motivations. He almost persuades you that he is right.
I almost gave up hope. There were so many times I questioned myself. You killed all those people. But I found you. So many sacrifices. Just to find you. Jesus Christ.
And the lines?
Now that we know who you are, I know who I am.
I'm not a mistake. It all makes sense.
And what really propels this scene, Elijah is shown as such a 3D character. He's evil and manipulative, but all he really wants is to find his way in life, for all the bad shit that has happened to him. Seriously guys, I'm going to need some tissues here. And then it ends, as David walks away. There is no need for a giant fight scene, a dance scene, or a love scene, because the movie ends perfectly, where we know exactly where the characters begin and end. Fantastic. One of the main faults of the film for some is the lack of action. In fact, there's really only one action scene, a one-take continuously filmed of two men effectively grappling and wrestling, yet it is way more intense and interesting than the recent Man of Steel fights or Batman vs Superman fights. The way it plays out is so realistic and down to earth, almost as if David is not a superhero. In fact, he loses. The sequence includes everything you would want from an action scene, not even once it has begun, and David loses. For a few seconds, we believe he is done. The scene begins suspensefully, and then he is saved. An uproar of music. our hero rises as he gets back up and defeats the antagonist, not through some ex machina or hidden power, but through fight, will, and determination. Throughout the film, you will notice some shyamalan cliches, a cameo by the director, the use of obvious colour, lots of panning. However, he also overturns some. Normally, it is very annoying and convenient in superhero movies when the villain is created and becomes active soon after or at exactly the same time as our hero is created or active. This is completely reversed, as our villain effectively creates our hero.
My only contribution was purple.
The biggest problem for Unbreakable was that it was coming off a gigantic hit in Shyamalan's last movie, The Sixth Sense. Everybody seemed to love it, and in many ways, Unbreakable is very similar, a supernatural psychological thriller. Except audiences didn't seem to love Unbreakable to any extent near The Sixth Sense, and so it was deemed not as good as The Sixth Sense, became less unknown and praised, leading to, until more recent years, a fairly cult status. Despite my huge appraisal for the film, it is not perfect. As previously mentioned, it's fairly slow and does not have many huge events in it. To some, this may bore them and simply not engage them. I think the first time you watch it, you will have to keep an open mind. For my second watch was way more satisfying and turned my opinion of the film from what I liked and respected into what I loved. Another small thing is that in trying to make everything serious and making comic books seem intelligent, the movie could perhaps appear to be a little pretentious, especially in some of the dialogue, which may seem a little ham-fisted, but I think works for the plot.
No shooting friends, Joseph.
The small, unique things Shyamalan does as a director could also be criticised, but me personally, I take them in my stride. The colour thing has no effect on the movie, but I can appreciate the attention to detail, though some of these small effects could be seen as a little jarring. So we reach the final conclusion. To me, Unbreakable is a great movie, and despite getting more love recently, it's still a hidden gem. One of its biggest pluses for me is its rewatchability. Despite not having an event-heavy plot, the characters are so interesting that even when I think of the movie, I feel like watching it again. This is certainly not a feeling I share for many movies. However, all you've heard from me has simply been my opinion. So perhaps instead of watching the Avengers Infinity War trailer for the 20th time, perhaps you'll give Unbreakable a chance instead.